Well, hello and welcome to today's Bite-Sized Athletics podcast, where we are speaking with the winning female of the Burnie 10 that took place in Tassie over the weekend. Welcome to the podcast, Caitlin Adams.
Thanks so much for having me, Lockie.
That's a race record, Kylie Risk, a great athlete, the Tasmanian, back in '98. That time was set, but that's not under threat, but it's still a fantastic run, as you mentioned, Gunnar. This is going to be, I think, well under 33 minutes, so a race, and we're seeing Pat Smith, of course, two winners happening here. Elphingston Group winner Pat Smith going just to the side there. They're getting a bit confused, but here is the winner of the 2021 UTAS Burnie 10 for our females, and it is Caitlin Adams from South Australia. Fantastic victory.
Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday night. It's been a few days since the race. The race, as we mentioned, was on Sunday. How have you pulled up? What are your early reflections on the race so far?
Well, it's been a bit of a whirlwind, to be honest. We've had a fair few sort of calls and interviews, which has been really nice. I pulled up, I guess, pretty sore. When you run that fast or you sort of run a PB for the first time, I think your body's always in a little bit of a shock sort of state and getting used to that feeling. So with the super shoes, my calves felt seriously fine, like they hadn't ran the next day, but my quads and lower back are definitely pretty tight. So I went and saw my physio today, and we're getting ready for Noosa Bolt this weekend, so have to sort of recover quicker than normal. But yeah, apart from that, everything's feeling pretty good.
So a very quick turnaround.
Yeah.
And you're back in Adelaide now, aren't you?
Yeah, we flew back Sunday night, so it was a quick trip, but I guess a successful one.
Yeah, no, nice. Before we get into the race, we will just go over a little bit about the plans and the preparations for the race in Tasmania. I guess, have you done that race before? What sort of brought it onto your radar?
So I actually haven't done the Burnie 10, so that was my first experience in that race, but I have raced one of, the same. I think the Tassie events are all sort of organised by Richard Welsh, and so I have raced the Launceston 10 before. That was a couple of years ago, I think in 2018. So that was one of my first interstate 10K races on the road, and that was a really cool event, but unfortunately haven't been able to get back, with COVID and other events that have gone on. So it was awesome to go over to Tassie again and race a different meet this time. So I actually wasn't planning on racing Burnie 10 until a couple of weeks ago. We had sort of a tight schedule. A couple of weeks ago, it was sort of going to be Burnie 10 one weekend, and then Noosa then the following weekend, and the weekend after that would be Adelaide's City to Bay race, which is pretty iconic here in SA. So Adam sort of said to us athletes, don't want you doing all three, but choose two of the three. And I'd been sort of running quite well over the 5K on the roads, and so definitely wanted to do Noosa Bolt, and obviously with City to Bay being quite iconic over here, wanted to do that. But unfortunately, SA Health sort of didn't really allow that one to go ahead. So a couple of weeks ago that was cancelled, and I thought, you know what, let's jump over and across the ditch and go over to Burnie 10 and have a crack there. And I'm obviously, like in hindsight, really happy I did that. And I think I would have had a fair bit of FOMO if I did stay at home in Adelaide and miss that event. But yeah, really stoked that it all worked out in the end, and I got to go over to Tassie and run Burnie 10.
I think you mentioned in one of the in the post-race interview on the live coverage that you were pretty fortunate in SA. You sort of got through COVID relatively okay in terms of you could still compete locally. I think you did the Fitzy's 5K in Adelaide with a 15:32, and a little bit before that a pre-departure meet that was in Queensland, 15:29. So you've definitely been in the form.
Yeah, I mean, the start of this year was actually really tough for me. So I think my form sort of come through mostly over winter. I sort of struggled with some health and sort of injury, like minor sort of issues at the start of this year, and was sort of confident in myself, but had a bit of, I guess I was sort of second guessing my ability when I was sort of going to some of those interstate races and jumping in with some really talented girls. And coming from a small state like SA, it's really easy to sort of position yourself on the track and in those sort of road and cross country events. Whereas when I was going into state, I was, I guess, struggling with that positioning and, where I sort of belonged and that sort of thing. So the start of this year, I was, really sort of just questioning everything. And it was a bit of a tough time, but I think that sort of made me into a stronger athlete. And I just persisted and kept being quite consistent with training. And I saw glimpses sort of hope in March when I ran a 3K PB here in Adelaide. And then obviously went over to Gold Coast. I wasn't within reach of, making an Olympic team or anything like that. But I just saw it as a good opportunity to race some of the top girls, like Eloise Wellings and Lissy Duncan and Jenny Blundell over in the Gold Coast, and was really surprised to run a 15:29 actually, because I'd sort of come off of like a end of season break, which was quite short, but there was still a bit of a break there a couple of weeks before that. And then I think that just allowed my body to really sort of freshen up and just go into that race with no expectations, and ran a PB there and cracked 15:30 for the first time. And then that sort of just catapulted the rest of my sort of winter season in terms of training. Was just, went really well, and had a couple of races in there, like you mentioned, the Fitzy's 5 and a park run as well, and a couple of cross country races locally that just went really well. And I was running times that, I was, running times that were nearly close to my PB on the track. So I thought everything's sort of tracking well, and it's positive signs going into this sort of athletics summer season coming up.
You mentioned Adam Diddick, your coach there. You had quite a contingent, the Team Tempo team down in Tasmania. We are speaking to Isaac next. Will be released the day after yours. How important has it been to have such a strong group, especially through the last couple of years, but through the COVID period, it must have been a big benefit.
Yeah, it's been so important, honestly. I just love going to training, and I think, Jess says a lot as well, that the team sort of, like Jess Stenson, that the team sort of inspires her every day. And it's honestly the same for me too. Like, we go out there and we know how to switch it on when we're training, but it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of banter, and there's a lot of, sort of mixed personalities in the group. So it's really enjoyable rocking up to training. I just love it. And Adam's such a supportive coach, and everyone in the group is, we've all got our own individual goals, but they're all just as important, no matter sort of what sort of team you're trying to make, or if you're just trying to run a PB or, do well on the SA sort of scene. It's great that we all sort of support each other. And recently, I mean, we've all been finding a lot of success. It's great that we're all sort of lifting each other up and really jumping to the next level, obviously, with Isaac running so well, and a couple of the other guys in the squad, Maddie Clark making the Olympics, and Jess Stenson coming back from having a baby and running her first marathon and it being a PB. So I think we've all just been inspiring each other and really pushing each other to make that next sort of jump to, get to that next level.
It's definitely been a strong period for your group. We will turn our attention to Sunday's race. Going into it, what was your thought process? Conditions can be sort of random, to put it lightly, in Tasmania. I think it's quite an open sort of course out on the highway there. Was it a headwind going out and coming back a tailwind? Is that kind of what you experienced?
Yeah, it was quite strange. I think it was a crosswind a lot of the time. So I actually don't know where the wind was coming from. I just felt like I felt it everywhere, which was kind of annoying, but it definitely was a little bit of a tailwind right at the start of the race. You sort of ran downhill. It was super fast. You did feel that tailwind. And then I think when we sort of came around the corner towards, and we're sort of running parallel with the ocean front there was a bit of a crosswind sort of hitting us. But it wasn't until, we turned around at the 5K sort of halfway mark that I really felt it. And that was our slowest K, was, between that 5K and 6K point. I think it felt like it was just hitting me in the face, and it was really strong. And we were sort of up on one of the highest points before we dipped back down into the township again. So I think it just exaggerated how we felt and how the wind, how strong it was. So honestly, like, a lot of that race, I guess, would be a blur, but the wind just felt like it was coming from all directions. But I grew up in country SA, and on the beachfront, and the town that I grew up in, Wallaroo, is really windy. There's never a non-windy day, so I think that almost played to my strengths a little bit. I've done not that I live there anymore, but when I was younger, I did a fair bit of running that was just battling strong winds. So it's not too unfamiliar for me.
And I guess Izzy Bat-Doyle, you would have gone in knowing that she was probably going to be your main competitor in that race. It was you were in a group with her, Millie just off the back, and a few of the guys in the race as well moving out, but on the way back, at least for the sort of 5th K through to maybe 6th or 7th, it was just yourself, Izzy, and Jack Bruce. Sorry. And there was, you were sort of changing orders. Was that to try and was that because the pace was changing, or was trying to sort of block out or trying to manage the conditions?
Yeah, I guess sort of trying to manage the conditions. We didn't really speak sort of too much during the race. Like, Izzy and I warmed up together, and I guess didn't really speak too much about our race plans. But during the race, we were pretty fortunate to have a couple of the guys there to draft off of, and sort of definitely going out in that first half. We were both able to sort of sit behind in that pack there, and then when we turned around, sort of Izzy and I found ourselves on the front of the pack, which was interesting, but it was good, sharing the load there. So it was good to have a little pack there, but yeah, we probably none of us communicated too much during the race, but it was just nice that it worked out that, a lot of us were sort of taking the loads at different times in terms of the wind and setting the pace and that sort of thing.
I'll correct myself. It was Nathan Morey. Sorry, yeah. I've got Jack Bruce in my mind with Isaac's interview coming up, but Nathan Morey, the local from Tasmania, was the sort of the one that you were with on the way back.
Runner.
Yeah. So at the 26 minute mark is kind of when you started to break away. So a little over the sort of 8K. How were you feeling then? Did you know you had what it took to sort of take the win at that time?
I was actually, feeling really good. At the start of the race, I probably wasn't feeling too good. The pace was really fast, and, we were putting in different surges because obviously there was the incentive of winning the $500 if you were the first male or female at the halfway point. So I think it was a little bit erratic and choppy in terms of the pace because of that. But then as soon as we turned around, we really had to respect the wind because of how strong it was. And a lot of people before the race, a lot of the locals that had done it plenty of times were warning us, don't underestimate that second 5K because it's going to be really tough. So at that point, we really dropped back in pace. And that's when I started to feel really good again. I think we dropped back to a 3:30K and then maybe a 3:21 and then a 3:15. So we were progressively getting quicker, but it wasn't anything that I felt, super uncomfortable about. And then I could sort of feel Izzy next to me, but she wasn't really putting in any moves or any surges. And I got to about 2.5K to go, and I thought, like, I'm feeling really good. Like, I might as well take this up. I might as well throw down, a bit of pace here or a surge, or just try and drop the group and push for home. And I sort of decided with about, I think it was just over 2Ks to go, that I did make that move, and I wanted to have something in reserve as well. I didn't just want to go and then, really exhaust myself and not have anything left to give if her and, the other guys happened to tuck back on. I didn't want to be overwhelmed if that was the case, because, she's a phenomenal athlete and she's always pushing and so courageous. So I didn't think I would drop her straight away. But as soon as I did make that move with 2Ks to go, I guess it was pretty forceful, and I did, drop the rest of the group. And I think it was only about a K to go when I realized, okay, I think this is mine, and I've definitely got something else to give. I'll put in another little surge. So the last K was quite quick as well, and which was funny because it was sort of into the wind and uphill, but I guess I was just running off so much adrenaline, and I knew that if I kept moving like I was, the race would be mine. And it was really exciting. But I'm glad I put in that surge when I did.
So you were aware that you were starting to make a bit of a gap on Izzy and Nathan?
Yeah. So probably when I first made that gap, at that 26-minute mark, I didn't really know, and I didn't really want to turn my head too much either. I just thought, just keep looking forward and keep pushing. And then about a K and a half to go was when the 5K winner actually passed me, and I could hear footsteps coming, and they were coming really quickly. So I was actually really quite scared at that moment because I thought, oh, they sound really fast. Like, I don't know if I can keep up with that. But it was the 5K winner, and he sort of did turn around and say, yep, tuck in, like I'll, sort of carry you on. But he was just running too fast. So that was short lived. Like, I sat on him for about 2 seconds and then he was gone. But yeah, I was quite happy to sort of see him next to me and see that it was a big tall guy rather than the group that I'd been running with, because yeah, like I said, he was going quite fast, but I was still sort of picking it up at that point, and yeah, just felt really confident that I could sustain it.
And it was your first time under 33 minutes, rounding that corner, that last corner, as you come into the straight with, I'm not sure how far it is, 300 or so meters to go in the race. Were you aware that you were so close, were so far under that time, or were on pace to have a pretty strong personal best performance?
Yeah, well, it's actually funny. I checked my watch at about that sort of point when you round the corner. I could see it in the footage when I rewatched it. I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I checking my watch? It's just really not important. And I don't know why I did that, but I looked down and I saw 31 minutes something, and I thought, oh, wow, okay, yep, I'm really on here for a big personal best. And, the rest of the race, I hadn't actually really been thinking about it, which is probably a good thing because of the conditions, the wind and, having Izzy there and Millie, hot on our tails as well. It was quite a tactical affair. And I think that was really great because, especially in Adelaide, a lot of the races that you go into are really based off of pace and, trying to run a fast time or a ballpark figure of, where you think you might be based on how training's been going. And so it was just so good to get in a race where I could sort of forget about that and know that I was just racing and it was just going to be purely that. And, if you pulled off a win, it was probably going to be a quick time anyway. So I was really stoked to come across the line and see that I had broken my personal best by about 30 seconds because I've been trying to break the 33-minute barrier for so long, and I haven't really been able to nail a good 10-kilometre on the track or on the road. It's been a long time coming, and I was quite disappointed when Gold Coast 10K was cancelled because I felt like I was in good shape for that race. And then there hadn't really been another opportunity this winter with COVID and sort of in our state. I did run a local 10K, but that was on bike paths. It was a little bit of a hillier course. So that was 33 minutes flat. And I was just really keen to get under that barrier. And I knew that off of training, I was going to be sort of running within that 32-minute sort of realm. I just didn't know how quick, and obviously with the conditions, I really wasn't focused too much on that. But yeah, long story short, really stoked I could get that 32:31 time on the board.
Well, yeah, it was a really strong run and a really good race. So I did watch it live and watched it back this morning. So no, congratulations. So next is Noosa. So that's on this weekend. What day is that on?
So that's Saturday, yeah. So we had a 6-day turnaround.
And anything after that, or a bit of a break before you get into sort of more track stuff?
Yeah, so I think the plan is, I was speaking to Adam at the start of the week, and we're just going to have a bit of a break from racing, I guess. Not that we've done too much, but there really isn't too much in the near future apart from our local state 5,000 metre championships on the track, which will be end of November. So that'll be a good opportunity again to just sort of see what I can do and let the fitness do the talking, I guess. But we really want to sort of open the season sort of officially next year because obviously with COVID and the last couple of years with uni, I haven't really been able to go overseas and put in, like a training stint at altitude or some racing. So we really want to focus on next year being the year that we do go overseas and, have a bit of a longer athletic season. So definitely don't want to do too much too early at the end of this year, and really just focus on hitting it hard next year, especially with all the teams that are coming up as well.
Well, best of luck I'm sure we will keep track of what you're doing for the remainder of the season. And thank you very much for joining us. First episode of Bite-Sized Athletics, the podcast. It was very good to have you. A very enjoyable and knowledgeable chat. So, no, thank you very much. To those who are listening or watching along, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favourite podcasting app or subscribe to us on YouTube. Also, if you support Athletics Exclusive, you can do so by heading over to our Patreon page, which can be found by following the link in the description. Thank you again, Caitlin. We'll chat to you later.
Thanks so much for having me.